Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Bill Stevens is our commissioner liaison, and Gary is our alum commissioner liaison.
That's good. Alum, I like that.
Right, he's our alum. John Gephardt's a new member of the committee as of.
Gentlemen, you are now live.
It says you're streaming live.
Okay, and then just to finish up, Phil Winkler and Joe Keenley are our other two members on. So good afternoon, everyone. This is the Friday, July 9th Budget and Finance meeting. We're a few minutes late getting started, but I think we'll make up for that and get everyone out of here in pretty short order. I know everybody wants to get into the next phase of the late Friday afternoon. I'd like to start with doing a screen share here, and we'll bring up first our agenda. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes, very good. Okay, so we have convened. Let's do opening ceremonies and our Pledge of Allegiance. Please, everyone, let's do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of
The United States of America,
Of America.
to the
And to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty,
justice for all.
justice for all.
Play ball. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, the pledge and the roll call. So with us today, let me switch my grid so I can see everybody here. At the moment, and we may have a few stragglers come in, we have from the committee members, Phil Winkler, Joe Keenley, John Gephard, and myself. Commissioners Bill Stevens, Gary Persinger, the town manager Bill Zolper, Sheena, and our newest member Chang Yi. So let me now switch to adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay, we can move on. Thank you for that. Organizational task. Now let me do the formal and proper introduction. We have a new member of the committee. Chang Yi is a property owner in Dewey, and I'll let you do a 30-second introduction of yourself, Chang, if you would be so kind.
Sure. I mean, I've been a longtime fan of Dewey Beach, and it's been a long time dream of mine to own a place here. So, it's I guess it's a dream can come true. I met one of the coolest people of all time as my neighbor, Phil Winkler. I'm very fortunate for that to happen. And I think I see him right now, right next door, actually. Hey, Phil. But
Hey.
very excited to be able to join. I just I feel like I've done a lot in my life, and I would love nothing better than bring anything I can of value to this to Dewey Beach and to this committee and to this group. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. Other than that, I love happy hours and having cocktails. So look forward to hanging out with all of you here very soon.
Very good. Thank you, Chang. And so I've done an informal introduction to most of the people on the call already. Welcome aboard. And we look forward to your input and ideas and fresh, new thoughts coming into the team here.
Thank you.
We do talk about, let's do a quick, I've been a little remiss in scheduling our next meeting before we adjourn. So maybe we can try to do something like that now. I'd probably like to skip over August and do something in early September. So why don't we do what we have been trying to do, which is go for before the town commissioners meeting, and we will have to do an in-person meeting from here forward. I was able to sneak in one more Zoom meeting before we have to, reconvene physically. So let's see if we can shoot for something. Once we find out if we have a date for the commissioners meeting in September, maybe we'll try to schedule something in, before that, on just to slide in there or something. We'll see how that goes. How's that? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
You don't have to get a date at this point.
Is there a regular day that the commissioners meet, for example, the third Friday of each month or something?
There is. It should be September the 10th.
That is correct. It's scheduled for September the 10th,
You got a Friday meeting, is it?
Friday at 6
It's a
o'clock.
Friday meeting, yeah.
Okay. Would it be an inconvenience if we tried to do a Friday and do a 4 o'clock in person? Would that be workable for everybody here at the moment?
The only issue, I guess, will the lifeguards, I guess the lifeguards will be gone by then. Or not, or they will.
They're done
Gary, do you
September
remember?
15th.
I'm sorry?
September 15th, on or about.
Yeah, so they're gonna still need the life-saving station
Okay, so you're
up until 5.
Oh, you're subbed in afterwards. Okay. Could we do something in town hall, or is there no, the ability to? No, I guess there isn't, is there? Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, so we can sit as many as 8 to 10 upstairs in the upstairs conference room. I just don't know how that would work with, putting out the YouTube and everything else.
You bet. How about Saturday, the following day? Does the lifeguard also take the life-saving station on Saturdays? Yeah, they do.
They'll be on the beach after 10. I'll check with Todd and I'll get you an answer tonight on that, Dave.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if we can sneak it in, I think we'd only need, 45 minutes to an hour for that last meeting. And that will be the last meeting of our session. So, just like to get that scheduled. Bill, if you can just get me some feedback on what our possibilities are there, appreciate that. Okay, so we'll hold off finalizing that date. The next order of business is the financial data review, and we're going to look at the year-to-date performance. Let me switch from the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't do the meeting minutes. Let me do that next. Presumably everyone who wants to has had a chance to review the meeting minutes from our June 11th meeting. Does anyone have any comments or suggestions of enhancements or modifications to the meeting minutes as written? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the draft minutes as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will make these from draft into final meeting minutes from our June 11th meeting. Very good. Thank you very much. Now on to what I was trying to get to. Sheena has provided me this list of what are just the highlights of the month of June and year to date, given that we're having this meeting rather early, being only the 9th, and they haven't yet collected and collated all the information to provide the full financial reports to include June. But I think that this is good for us to review. And let me just run down the highlights of it. And Bill Zolper or Sheena, please feel free to pipe in with any comments or additions. So according to this, transfer tax was $243,000 for the month of June, which is significant. And we are at 702,000 and change for the year.
Wow.
I believe that is getting pretty darn close. What did we settle on? 735 is our annual target for the fiscal year budget. It's really amazing that we've captured that much in just the April, May, and June timeframe in one quarter. So I think it's safe to say that this is looking very good at the moment from that standpoint. Seasonal parking also is very good, made the budget for the year already. Dog licenses are what they are. That's, well along the line as well. And you even have 4,300 premium dog licenses sold. The additional revenues are the others, the goat donations, the DBE building permit extension. That probably requires just a quick explanation. Bill Zolper, would you be able to give us an understanding of that?
Yeah, so the contract with DBE was that we would get approximately $3,400 or $34,000 or $33,000 a year. They're not done their construction yet. They haven't settled with us on getting their CO, and it may be a little while. We're still, going back and forth with them over what they consider retail space, what we consider retail space, what we consider parking, what they consider parking. Actually, Van Dyke Street on the Bay side what needs to be done to that street, and also with the storm sewer that goes out into the bay. All those things need to be addressed before we actually give them CO on that. And so Jim Dedes has been working on that. He couldn't be with us here today, but he was able to go ahead and get the $33,333.33 from them. Sheena, did I miss anything?
You're good. You got it all.
That's great. Okay, so that's money that wasn't budgeted for, but that's, would also go into the till, right? There was no original expectation or for that in the budget, right? Auction proceeds, COVID revenues, the ARA funds are significant because that's the Recovery Act funds that we've been reimbursed, right? For the money we've spent out of pocket. Sheena, did I understand, or Bill, that there's another tranche of that will come in?
So based on the census, 400 people living in town year round, which we know is more, but that's what they based it on. We got approximately $215,000 that'll come in over the next year and a half. Half of it has come in already at $107,976.35. We have not spent any of that so far. I've asked the department heads to provide me a justification for equipment that they would like to purchase. And with that, I'll take that to the commissioners. The commissioners will approve it, and with that, we'll put it into Gray Fox for transparency.
Great, very good. Set asides, payouts, are the earmarks that we set aside. Bottom line, 200,000 above just for the month of June, and 750 above budget for the year. Can't argue with that. Better financial straits than the country is. Okay, so with that, any questions about these numbers? Obviously, when the numbers are all collated and the financial schedules are posted, you can find them on the website. I noticed that the website with the reshuffling of things, it's a little harder to find. They're not easily available right on the front page, but there is a section on the website for the, I think it's government or business, I forget which. And if you pull down, it goes to the financial reports. So they should be readily available in the next, week to 10 days, guys, something along those lines. So, but all happy numbers, all happy. We're good on that. So, all right. Any other questions or discussion on the numbers for the month of, and the year to date, June? Before we delve into the other issue on the agenda, I'd like to bring up one additional item that Phil Winkler has taken it upon himself, and thank you, Phil, to start to take a look at the residential revenue, the accommodations tax for some rentals that perhaps aren't fully reporting or not reporting. And so, Phil, can you give us a little bit of background on what you've been doing in that area? And just so we have a clear understanding of the status.
Yeah, what I did was download the Sussex County list of properties spreadsheet of the residences in Dewey Beach, and that amounts to about 1,911. And then working with Kate, she gave me a copy of her rentals spreadsheet as of a few days ago. And that shows 553 rentals. So there's over 1,300 other properties in Dewey that may be rentals, but aren't paying the rental fee or the accommodations tax. So it's our plan to print out a listing by street and by number, and by the process of wandering around, and perhaps the code enforcement officers can help. This is all being determined, and searching VRBO and Airbnb to find candidates who seem to have made a mistake by not paying for a rental license, the accommodations tax. Now, another part of this, Kate told me that at least 3 years ago, when it was discovered that there was a rental property that hadn't paid for a rental license, our building inspector at the time, Bill Mears, would send a certified letter to the property owner asking about that. Why that stopped, I have no idea. It could be because Bill retired, who knows? But that's another thing that we're looking at to make our rental license fees and accommodations tax to increase that and make it a more routine thing. So it's a matter of gathering the data and finding out.
Very good. Thank you, Phil. Two
Yep.
things jump out. One is, I think I heard you say somewhere in the neighborhood of 550 licenses, right?
553.
And I remember not too many years ago, there were 700 to 750 rental licenses purchased, which is a significant.
Now that's interesting too. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this has been on our agenda for a couple of years in one committee or another. And it was certainly a project for TJ that he was enthusiastic about. And Fred, we're going to have to get with our council, with Fred Townsend, and ask him about what we can and can't do. That really is an issue. Apparently we can't ask property owners, do you rent, yes or no? And that's very interesting.
why don't we do this? Bill Zolper and Phil, can you guys collaborate on, getting the needed information with Fred's help or however we do it, so that
We are,
the rules are there? Yeah, Chung, yes, please. Go ahead.
Hey, if you don't mind being a new guy, I was just going to ask maybe a dumb question. When people are buying properties here, like, are they made aware? Like, if you buy a rental property, are you made aware that there's a tax that needs to be paid? Like, because I know I didn't know until right now.
that's interesting.
So
Maybe-
I intend on paying mine, by the way. Sorry, guys, I didn't realize. But seriously, no one ever mentioned anything to me. So maybe is there something we can make a concerted effort to, like, maybe have title companies or have people know, hey, by the way, you're supposed to, it's a rental property, you're supposed to pay this tax to Dewey Beach, that kind of thing.
It's a very
That's
good idea. I'm sure there's ways that we can notify new property owners of that being in case. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
In a broader sense, I think, there's both the finding the people who aren't buying their rental license and paying the accommodations tax, and there's the how do you approach them and recoup that money, and or going forward figure out what to do. It's not a small undertaking. It's going to take some manpower and people power to help do that job. Bill Zolper, can we enlist some help maybe? And you have this discussion with Bill as well about the manpower involved and whether code enforcement can be an assist to us in that regard.
Yeah, so Dave, I met with Phil yesterday, and we had actually hired a part-time person here at Town Hall two and a half weeks ago to go across the internet, look at the rentals here in Dewey, try to identify the addresses. That's tough because sometimes they don't put an address actually in, so we have to look at the picture of the house or the location. And she was putting that sheet together. And then with Phil, we were going to have them sit down and compare what we've discovered as being online and then what we have in rental licenses, compare the two, and then try to figure out which people are not actually paying for the rental license. So we're moving along with that. Met with Phil and Kate yesterday and Lisa on that. And lo and behold, Lisa got offered a job, with full benefits and some other things. So she'll be leaving us. Today's her last day. We're going to be going back out and look for another person to fill that spot in the near future.
Okay, well, that's one of the points of potential capture, right? The other is, if they don't show up on the sites that we search, we should still mobilize some way of identifying places in town. And, that's going to require people, feet on the street to be able to identify that and a coordinated effort. So Phil, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's what Chong pointed out, that he just bought a couple properties here and nobody from the town informed him about any of these requirements. So again, I raised the question, Bill, you can check into this. How does the town know that a property has been sold other than getting Joe Choma's monthly mailing?
Well, we get a transfer tax, right? We know that. Right.
Well, yeah. So, and how's that being accounted for? One of the things at our meeting yesterday that Kate brought out was that we are using a new section of the database, and I forget the name of it. Bill, you would know, Hudson or whatever. I don't know.
Edmonds.
The what?
Edmonds.
Edmonds.
Edmonds, you're right. That enables us to track such things. So that's another thing brought on board. We really do need something more than spreadsheets. And I think Edmonds is going to help in that quite a bit.
Okay, so why don't we agree to do this? Let's continue the efforts that are already in play. Take a status of this in our September meeting and see what other things we need to do to mobilize to the effort. The good news is, thanks to Phil and Bill and the town, we're actually starting to do something about this. I know we've long talked about it, and there was a lot of groundwork done by Scott Koenig, but never, I don't think we ever really got much activity or traction in doing this. And it is an important potential revenue source for the town that we're not getting and we should be getting. And we have to do it right, but as long as we are doing the right planning and execute well, I think, there's some good potential here. Anybody else want to make any comment about this topic before we move on?
If I might,
It comes to mind that perhaps we can also address it through public information. For example, today here in Baltimore, I just received my election materials, time-sensitive election materials. Now, that may not be the best way, but with some Dewey Beach correspondence to owners, a letter or a memo in there could reflect the fact that if you are renting your property, you need to get a rental license and accommodations tax. That public information could save us some time in terms of having to sleuth who is renting without paying.
We're absolutely looking at something like that too. Thanks.
Right, to send out with the notifications of the election. Chong, would you want to add to that?
Have you thought about maybe doing some social media around it? Maybe like a Facebook page for Dewey Beach, owners, and maybe you can, maybe notify the people that don't know and people that kind of get them to join in and then give them some information that, like, I don't know if you would want to incentivize them for paying the tax, but it might be a good way to guilt them into doing it if they're not paying, you know what I mean?
Okay. All right, well, let's for now, let's table. Oh, Sheena, you wanted to say something.
yeah. We get the transfer tax paperwork every month. Kate updates it in QuickBooks or in Edmonds, sorry. It is not listed at this time. The property is not hooked to who rents at this time. That's one of the things Kate has been working on. When we do send out a mailing with the rental licenses to every property owner, if I'm correct, Kate, you would know this. We send it out every year, the rental license application to everyone. And that is also the accommodations tax paperwork. If someone does not send it back, we have had people over the past couple of years say, oh, I'm not renting anymore. We've also had people that have come in and said, I just bought a rental property, I'm not renting it out. With it being we have to trust people. So that is where we are behind the 8 ball. Kate has been heading this up and trying to get more things straight, but she's a little overwhelmed. Kate?
Hi, Kate.
Hi, how is everybody? Everything Sheena said was correct. There's not really, I would think, that much of an excuse for someone to say they didn't know. I guess it might depend on when they settled on their property. The mailer with the rental license application, accommodations tax, all of that goes out late winter. And we try and get everything back by middle of March. But it does have a copy of the accommodations tax form in there, kind of explains, it has a copy of the ordinance written on the back of it. So I would suppose if the person purchased after late winter and immediately wanted to start renting, then certainly they may not be aware. But other than that, yeah, that goes out to every property owner in our system every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right, so we'll,
Awesome.
let's just make sure that we keep on top of this. It sounds like there's enough activity to mobilize and make sure that this is a continuing discussion in successive meetings. Joe, you want to add to something? You're on mute, Joe.
So we have parking passes, weekly parking passes, monthly parking passes. And if someone comes in to rent, they may be buying a parking pass. Is that a method to see if someone says, yes, I'm renting for a week, take the address down, check it against paid rental applications?
Do they have to specify an address that they're staying to buy a parking pass? I wouldn't think so. No, right?
Most of the parking passes, the short term, are being done either at the kiosk or via Park Mobile. And a lot of the people that rent out, like Marcia Sheck, she buys 2 seasonal parking passes for every one of her properties. So anybody that's staying there, they've already got the parking. They're not going to need one.
Okay, just a thought.
Yeah, just an idea. We'll come up with some more things, but between Bill and Phil, you guys have the lead on, kind of taking this forward, and we appreciate the effort. We've long talked about doing it. Just the fact that there's only 553 rental licenses out this year, and the 750 range was just a couple of years ago. I think that tells us there's a gap here, and we have to figure out how to capture it, right? Okay, very good. Okay, on to the next order of business, which is the further discussion of our potential new revenue sources for the town. Okay, I've taken the ideas that we have talked about both in the past and in our last meeting or two, and I put them in this table, and it's up on the screen. You can see it now, correct? Yes, okay. Let me run down, and what I'd like to do is do a quick exercise here where we actually try to figure out if these numbers might be in the ballpark and if there's any work that needs to be done to support that, and then talk about it from a feasibility standpoint. It's about 4:30 now. I'd like to keep this discussion no more than about 20-25 minutes so we can finish up by 5 p.m. But let's have at it. And this is the meat of what we had. The 2 things that we're obligated to do as a Budget and Finance Committee is to report to the commissioners both our impressions and our suggestions for how to make sure that we meet our budget. I think we're doing that, and we're certainly doing well from that standpoint. But the other is to try to come up with new revenue sources for the town to get a more stable and predictable revenue sources over a period of time, understanding all the reasons for that. So let's have at it. The first one, and these are in no particular order, of course, increased business license fees. We've talked about this several times over the past year and more, prior years. They have not been, and I'm not going to go into very detailed analyses of any of these, but we'll talk in a very more high level. We have had discussions about increasing them, and they have not been increased in quite a few years, as I understand it. As recently as last fall in November, I think, when we first met, and Sheena produced some thoughts from the standpoint of out-of-town business owners pay a different scale than in-town business owners, things of that nature. And, the potential increase hasn't been for a certain period of time. So that could bring in, a significant amount of money if we were able to consider doing that, maybe in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. I think that's supportable if we did the detail work, but it's probably, a little off here one way or the other. It would, of course, under the notes, probably receive a significant amount of pushback from the business community, right? We've seen that in the past. So what do you think as a group, the feasibility, say 1 is easy, 1 is very hard to do, 5 is very feasible to do and practical, and we should consider it seriously. 1 to 5 being 5 is the best. What would you say is a feasibility we would choose for something like that at this point? Anybody have any feeling on that? Anyone hazard a guess?
Yeah, this is Lynn. Sorry I was late. Inflation is with us. The businesses have been raising prices. I don't know if anybody's bought a beer at any of these places lately, but it's going up a lot. So I don't see any problem with matching an increase in the volume and the money with a little bit more off of the license fees, whether that be a gigantic hunk or setting up a gradual thing so that we get it every year or two. I think that's prudent to do something like that on a 3 kind of basis.
Okay, and it has been, quite a few years, as I recall, since that's been done. Gary or Bill Stevens, as commissioners, do you have any feedback on what you think the feasibility of this is?
I do not off the top of my head have any specific feedback. I don't know that we've really, haven't really discussed this. I'd have to take a look at your numbers also. I wasn't sure how you were getting to $50,000 to $100,000, but I certainly take your point. That's a significant amount of money. There clearly will be pushback. And it depends on which segment of business owners would get hit the hardest. I think we'd have to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kate, Tina, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there's two things that come to mind. One, Dave, is that the amount that an individual pays to have their business here in Dewey is what I feel market. So, for example, my wife works from home. She pays the $300 fee to the town to run her business here. The question that I think it comes to mind as part of Lynn's comment is the restaurants and bars, the fee that's associated with that is tied to the fire number, the occupancy number. And I believe that's only $6 per the occupancy number per year. Is that right, Tina?
I do believe, but the number that Dave is working with is raising the out-of-town small business.
Okay.
Right now, the out-of-town small business only pays $109. And
Well,
that right there, it bring that up to make them the same as the in-town.
Yeah. Well, it may be two different things that we're talking about, because maybe we need to put different line items on that and really say, this is taking that out-of-town small business from 100 to 300, 109 to 300. What does that mean? And then to Lynn's point, what does it mean for the bars and restaurants to pay their share?
Okay, so thanks for the feedback. I agree that there's no specific formula for these numbers, Gary, yet, but I do remember in prior discussions, we've calculated these numbers to be somewhere in that neighborhood. So there is some level of detail behind that thinking. In terms of feasibility, understanding the pushback, does that make it closer to a 1? Is it feasible from a standpoint of, you think something that the town council could get through? Is it, or would be easy to get done? Is it a 5? What's your thoughts? Is it a 3? Right in the middle? Is because of the pushback? What do you guys think?
My thought is it's all part of inflation, as Lynn pointed out.
I would support the Lynn and Phil comment about inflation, borrowing costs, interest rates for business owners, larger business owners, lines of credit items. I think are pretty low, and interest rates are continuing to hold at historically low rates. So inflation is going up. I would support the Lynn and Phil.
Okay, so you're saying
and designate that a 4, Dave.
Yeah, they could be indexed, right? So I'm hearing Joe say he thinks it could be a 4. Does anybody have it? Maybe instead of doing the feasibility, maybe this isn't a good way to go about it. We'll make some notes about what we think are the key things that will drive that ability to be done. And I'll do that after the fact of the meeting in the notes, okay?
Put a Y in there, yes.
Yes, and feasible.
Yes.
Feasible. Create focused donation line item in budget. We tried to do that this year, and I think it ended up coming out eventually. It should probably be considered for future years, as long as, and I think we all agree, it should be tied to a particular purpose. That was the outcome, I think, before we ended up not needing to include it. Did the marketing committee ever take up a donation for a particular purpose? I think they did, didn't they?
Yeah, I
They're,
think they just did a donation for the middle of the highway for
The beautification, right?
he's out there, beautification, yeah.
Right.
I-
Bill.
I thought we were trying to separate the operating budget and maybe the donation line to more of a capital budget where we, if that was really I'm very skeptical about donations in the first place, but I would think that would be a capital program where we or a group said that we need to do this type of a capital project and then get donations to do that rather than to try to tie that to an operating budget. I just don't think that's feasible.
Okay, that's feedback. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? I think the point of several of these, let me just cap this. Point of several of these is any new source of revenue would free up other money in the operating budget for other things, right? That's the goal here. And so it isn't a new stream in the sense that it's going to bring in new revenue, but it reallocates some that we don't spend on other things. So anything, I mean, to me, this seems like a no-brainer. If we pick the right reason and the right purpose for the fundraising and the donations, it would be a pretty easy one to put in. What do you guys think?
Dave, I'd be in favor of this. Is there a tax structure that would benefit the donator?
I think that would be an important wrinkle to make sure that that was.
We have looked at that from a commissioner perspective in the town hall, and those donations made to the municipality are tax deductible, just as for any other nonprofit that you would donate to.
Okay,
Great.
good. Let's make sure that that gets factored in. Okay, so we can do this. It's all about how it gets done and for what purpose. We'll leave that as that seems like a highly probable one that we could do. It's doable. Let's put it that way.
Does anyone know any of the Bezos?
You're probably all better off. Never mind. I won't even go there. Infrastructure town services fee. This is something that has been brought up several times over the last couple of years. We all understand the need for improving our town infrastructure, whether it's, the underground stuff or other things, remediating Bayside flooding and such. There is a town infrastructure fund, and it's part of our set aside. It's well capitalized at the moment, but I doubt that you could say that it's capitalized sufficiently to cover what the infrastructure committee is going to come up with as the total number needed. Bill Zolper, is the infrastructure committee currently working on a master plan for, the infrastructure costs to do a lot of this stuff?
So when you look at the infrastructure committee, what they've been working on is the stormwater system here in town. Of course, we did Reed Street, we did part of Sweet Street and part of Bayard in May and in the beginning of June. That ran about $220,000 for that part of the project. Sheena, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's about $500,000, I think, in our infrastructure fund right now. There's still at least 4 more roads that need to be done with storm drains. 2 of them are roads that have had the drains are completely collapsed. So the ones we just did at 220,000 were ones that we could just reline. We didn't have to dig those up. So it's going to be rather expensive to do those projects. Overall, there is a plan for the town, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't gotten into that.
150.
I've been just looking at the stormwater.
Barry or Bill Stevens, have you been involved in any of that with the infrastructure committee to know what the status of a master plan, so to speak, would be?
I have not.
Yeah, I think the only master plan is what Bill Zolper just referred to, and that is the effort that was done about 5 years ago. And I think what happened was at the top of that list came the Reed Street effort and restructuring some of the shoreline there. There was a similar project that was high on the priority list too, just a couple of streets down, and we continue to around the Sunset Park area. We continue to look for some sources of funding there, but we've been working with Center for Inland Bays, but so far we've not been able to find funds for that. There's never going to be enough money for infrastructure. And I don't know if the infrastructure committee has really look beyond, much beyond, if at all, the stormwater drainage issues. I mean, that really is a high priority for us since we're surrounded on, or not surrounded, but bordered on both sides by the length of the town by water. So
But did I
that's really
understand,
something that gets a high priority.
Gary, did I understand you to say, though, that even the stormwater management, that we don't have our arms around the entirety of the town's issues on that? We only have some shots of particular areas of concern that need to be addressed?
There's a whole list of projects. Again, this came out about 5 years ago. These are candidate projects, but clearly they all need money, and we're talking about, many millions of dollars to do everything on that list. So there is a prioritized set of projects, which I honestly have not looked at in some time. But thus far we've just been trying to pick some of the top ones off the list and find the funding to address those.
So,
had some luck, but still looking for funding sources.
Sounds to me like what we ought to do is recommend to the council when we make our recommendations that they have the infrastructure committee go back to that 5-year-old plan and really revisit it at a complete picture of what we're missing there, and get something that represents a true comprehensive way of looking at it. Phil?
Back when I was on the infrastructure committee before I quit, one of the things that and I think it's still on the website, was we had created a long-range plan of all different issues that needed to be looked at. And our goal was to go to the council and prioritize them. The existing town manager at the time came in and put a stop to that and put a motion that's in our town council rules that the infrastructure committee may only do what they're told to do. And that still exists.
Okay, they can be told to take a more comprehensive look at things, right? So we can go back on that.
To our comprehensive plan or something, but they were specifically told they could not project and say, this is what is needed in the future. Look at that.
Okay. So let's agree that for that one, we need to do the groundwork and get the infrastructure committee involved in doing more of a comprehensive look and recommendation to the council. We can fix individual problems until the cows come home. I think we need to see what the long range cost is going to be for this and how we're going to fund it. And we have a healthy $500,000 or so, I think Bill said, in the infrastructure fund right now. Well, that sounds good, but it's not going to fix, but a small percentage of the overall issues here. So let's bubble that one up to the top and put that in as far as our recommendations in front of the council. Okay.
I agree. Yeah.
Move on. Property tax has to be on the list, right? We all know that no one likes it. It's a political football. But we are obligated by our fiduciary responsibility as a budget and finance committee to make sure it's on the list. We'll leave that at that. No one need to comment. It's just, we'll put it out there, right? It's good enough. The next one, beach tags, is one that John Gephardt had mentioned in our last meeting. And hey, everything here that deserves looking at. So the issue I think I see with that is that no other town in Delaware has these. It's widely used in New Jersey, of course, but in Delaware we'd be the first and only. So I think that could be an issue in terms of affecting our visitation to town. So a lot of the more discussion would have to be taken on that one, but we'll leave it on the list, and we'll see what what it does. Any thoughts or comments?
Dave, I think your potential monetary impact is grossly low on that.
Yeah.
In a sense that, in New Jersey, I believe a daily pass is $10. Now, I think you can get a reduced discount when you do for a weekend or a week or a season. But my thought there was that there's so many people that can park for free at the house they rent. And so we're not getting any parking income from them because they're walking the town. And yet they're all going to the beach. And perhaps, I don't know how much money is being accumulated through parking, but it would be very interesting to see whether the beach tag idea would would perform better in terms of revenue than the parking would. It also probably would have well, it probably would be about the same number of employees that would need to be there for enforcement or whatever. But the other argument would be that I don't think people are going to abandon Dewey Beach. Dewey Beach is a very distinct town, and people come for they're very loyal. I don't think if there was an implementation of a beach tag system, and maybe this could be off the charts, but a relaxation about parking permits, if we went the beach tag route, I don't think people would avoid coming to Dewey Beach.
Okay. Oh, thanks for the feedback and the input, John. I think, some people might disagree that it could affect negatively the visitation. Let's suffice it to say, it's an issue that we will raise. And if you can come up with a thumbnail sketch of what you think comparable to the numbers in New Jersey, or maybe a little bit less, so we don't look like we're, just trying to mimic what they're doing right away, and what you think the total revenue could be for a season, we'll plug that in and we'll leave it at that for the time being.
Dave,
Yeah, Gary.
could I interject something? I would have to find the specific reference in state code, town code, or the charter. But I believe that we are prohibited from charging for beach access.
Oh,
Okay.
is that statewide or townwide or?
Yeah, it may be statewide, but I'm not sure. That's why I say I would have to find the specific reference to state law, town code, or charter. But pretty certain that we are prohibited from doing that. But I will double check and get you the specific reference on that.
Okay.
I
So
think that goes back to Whiskey Beach Tales and stuff like that. I think you're right about that.
okay. So let's follow that.
Yeah, if you do find that, that would impact my research very quickly in terms of what kind of revenue I could find.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll try to turn that around pretty quickly for you.
Thank you, Gary.
I'm going to try to get through the list pretty quickly here because I do want to wrap up within the next 10 minutes here, get us off and running. There had been some discussion about including certain beach-related costs in the beach tax fund, which is, obviously well capitalized at this point. I remember talking to TJ about this, and there had been some discussions about perhaps the lifeguard costs could be moved over and paid out of the beach tax fund. That's another one that's going to require a lot more discussion, vetting, research, and such. But it's one that we could include because it does represent a potentially significant amount of, we'll call it savings, because it's out of one pocket into the other, but it is a significant chunk of money. So nothing to be done on that one at this point. Let's hold comments until we get a couple further along here. We could increase the accommodations tax. We've already set a plan, I think, for the hotel accommodations to have the ability to increase, and whether that will actually be triggered in the next year or two, we'll see. But the residential accommodations tax hasn't been increased since it was originally set at 3% quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago now. And so that would require legislative work to do, of course. But it is a potential source of additional revenue, and it's a fairly stable and predictable revenue source. We get somewhere just shy of about $500,000 a year in accommodations tax. Based on our earlier discussion today, that might actually be low compared to what we should be getting, and we'll continue to follow that. But there's always that. Improve the residential rental collection and identify transgressors. That's what we've talked about. So that's already pretty well, documented in our discussion here. The 25 to 50K is just a number as a placeholder. We don't know what that would be, but my guess is that it would be higher than that if we were able to capture more. And finally, And this is just, more on the cost side of things, review and adjust the personnel levels and functions and the compensation. This is a mixed, a double-edged sword, because we've long talked about this, and Bill Zolper, I believe you've been doing some of this already. I think we've all heard in prior administrations and years that we are underpaid for many of the personnel, especially the police and others, compared to other surrounding comparable towns that we consider our peer group. But that could be the flip side of what happens if we decide to go and undertake this. We might actually, it cost the town money, but at least we'd be getting to the right answers for the right reasons. So, Bill, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? I know you've already been doing some of this work.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example of that, Dave, is our police officers start out about 42,000. That's one of the lowest paying police departments in the state. And granted, we're only a mile by 2 blocks, but we have over 20,000 people here for at least 2 months out of the year. And the police officers are running from call to call. So, I mean, I think that's a good example. I know the other 7 or 8 months out of the year, we're not quite as busy, but we still have a major artery going through this town, Route 1, with a large number of traffic vehicles transporting through here every day. But I think if you look at our admin folks, our police dispatchers, across the board, they are clearly under what other towns are our size.
And Bill, you've already started some semblance of looking into this, haven't you? In your.
I've talked to Georgetown, the RL Hughes over there, and to Danny Wright over in Laurel, trying to see what their police officers are making compared to ours. And the other problem is, when they're not making a lot of money, they're going to leave and go to other departments, the Delaware State Police, or they're going to go to Dover, or some departments are paying, starting salary around 52, 53,000.
Gotcha. Well, and one of the things we discussed back in, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Someone wanted to speak? Just one of the things that we had heard when we thought we were going to be faced with a deficit in the early budget rounds, we put forward the notion that there might even be the ability to outsource the job of the town's judge and the position that it's involved in.
We're getting some feedback. Man.
Did anything change that's causing it? Anybody change anything? All right. Well, I will notes and a column to this. We will circulate it to everyone and individual feedback to me. We will review it one more time, and we will make it ready to give to the council after our September meeting, as we planned. And we will fulfill our obligation to as a committee for the year. If you have any particular thoughts and you'd like to send them to me in email, that's fine. Just don't send it to everyone for FOIA reasons. And I think that's good for today. Any other comments or suggestions here? Okay. With nothing further to cover, can I have a motion to adjourn for today?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Have a good one, everybody. You commissioners, have a good evening.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Take good care.
Cheers. Thank you. Yeah.
See you later, Phil.
Say goodnight, all.